Good afternoon, Ranger.
Good afternoon.
My name is Nico. We've never met before, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, pleasure to meet you. I'm one of the three lawyers that represents Adrian Gonzales. And you've testified before, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you know how this works, it's cross-examination. I'm going to ask you some questions, and if you don't understand my question, just ask me to repeat it, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you went over some of your training and your kind of your specialties. I'm not going to go through your academy and being a trooper and then being a ranger and then going to Ranger School. But you mentioned something that caught my attention. You said, I think the government asked you if everyone is trained the same. You said some have specialties.
Yes, sir.
Oh, what do you mean by specialties?
So within the Texas Ranger Division, we have certain Rangers that have gone to additional and more advanced shooting reconstruction schools. Me, myself, I'm one of the instructors for the bloodstain pattern analysis program, so I've had additional training in that realm of things. So that's what I was referring to when I say that we all have the same foundational training, if you will, and then from there go on to different things if that's what it calls for.
Got it. Well, part of your training is you've trained in firearms.
Yes, sir. I have had firearms training.
And you continue to train in firearms every year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you've been trained in tactics.
Yes, sir.
And so you understand security and safety, and you've worked on school cases before, I'm assuming?
What do you refer to by school cases?
I mean, any type of school shooting, active shooting in a school?
As far as an active investigation,
yes,
I believe Robb was the first active school-related shooting, but I've been involved in other mass casualties, yes, sir.
Okay. Mass casualties is a better way to describe that, generally. Have you ever been in an active shooting situation yourself as an officer?
No, sir.
So and not a lot of officers have been in an active shooting, actual situation. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, yes, sir.
So an officer or a law enforcement individual that has an opinion based off their training, not a lot of times it's because of actual being through that scenario.
That's a fair statement, yes, sir.
Okay. So now I want to direct your attention to the actual investigation that you did. You showed some pictures, and you showed pictures of room 112 and 111. You recall those?
Yes, sir.
And we saw the defects, and that's a word that I think the jury is acclimated to now. A defect means what to you?
In the realm of shooting reconstruction?
Yes, sir.
It means where a projectile's entered a substrate.
Okay. And it's affected that substrate in some form or fashion?
Yes, sir.
And are you a trajectory analyst?
I've had training in it.
Okay, so have you testified on trajectory analysis before?
No, sir, I can't recall that I have in an actual trial setting.
Okay. Well, this won't be the first, but I may ask you some questions about that. But in relation to those pictures of the doors, we saw a number of defects on the doors. Okay. Do you recall looking at those pictures of 112? You're going to get it up for us
Gotcha.
right now. 112 and 111?
From the hallway?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Here they are. May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
I'll direct your attention here. And so we see a number of marks, defects on these doors, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you notice any defects on the handles?
Defects on the handles?
Yes, sir. Or around the handles?
Not that I recall.
And you looked at them on both sides, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the locking mechanism is on the handles?
There, yes, sir.
So is it fair to say that you saw no defects affecting the handle and the locking mechanism?
Not to my knowledge.
And so with your expertise and your investigation, so if somebody went into these doors, most likely, it's probably that these doors were not locked.
I can't speculate to that. I can just tell you how they were found when I got there.
Well, the locks weren't damaged.
The law, I can say that, yes, sir.
Okay. And I was just asking if you use some common sense. If locks aren't damaged and people got in the door, then they were probably, and I know there's a probability in your profession, they were probably not locked.
You would take that into account, yes, sir, and then hopefully look from there to decide,
Right.
get that answer, yes, sir.
And you came to know it being part of this investigation that those doors were not locked. Did you come to that knowledge at some point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my question about the probability matched up with the reality that those doors were not locked.
That's correct.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you about some tactics, okay?
Okay.
You've heard of something called a fatal funnel?
I have.
Can you describe to the jury what fatal funnel means to you?
So a fatal funnel, a lot of times is described too when you're entering a threshold. So, for example, you've got a doorway in front of you, and if you get sucked into that doorway, that's the funnel, if you will, or in this case, the fatal funnel, because if you have a threat on the back side of that room and you don't approach it tactically correct, for example, that's what the fatal funnel is. You can put yourself in a fatal position on how you approach and how you go through that room.
And you said if you don't approach it tactically correct. So may I stand up, Judge?
Yes.
And so when you're entering a dangerous situation where there's deadly force potentially being used, you don't just walk into the situation like this and try to handle a circumstance, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you do or you do not?
No, I would not.
Yeah. So there's a tactical way of doing it. There's a tactical way of doing it.
There is, yes, sir.
And when we say tactical, meaning safety for you and for the people that you're trying to protect.
Yes, sir. More so myself, just giving myself the best advantage of being able to approach that situation.
And you're not being selfish when you say more for myself, right?
Not in that statement, no, sir.
I can tell, and I know what you meant by it, because a police officer that's dead is no good to anybody, right?
That's correct.
So you need to be alive and be able to protect people so you can minimize the loss of life.
Yes, sir.
You ever heard of a blue gun?
Yes, sir.
Okay, those are practice guns. There's an orange one too, right?
Yes, sir.
Will you believe me if I tell you that this is not a real weapon?
I'll take your word for
Will
it.
you believe that we have the bailiff check with this?
I believe, yes, sir.
This magazine can't come up. Would you like to inspect it? Or you trust me?
I'm good to go.
Okay, and so when we look at tactics, there's a way to tactically hold this weapon and a long rifle or a handgun, correct?
Correct.
So this would be a low ready.
Correct.
I don't even like the fake gun pointing at people. This is a high ready.
Yes, sir.
This would be a side ready,
Sure.
and this would be Sewell.
Yes, sir.
And we explain to the jury what Sewell means, what the Sewell position is.
As you can see, he's got the gun sucked to his midsection. It's just a way to have the gun safely pointed down, but at the same time close to your body, and it's a way that you can easily re-engage a target if need be.
And re-engage, you mean go from a Sewell position into an active shooting position, correct?
Correct.
And so the 4 gun safety rules are always treat a weapon like it's loaded, correct? Correct. Never point it at anything you're not prepared to kill and destroy.
Yes, sir.
Always keep your finger, I like to say high and outside the trigger guard, but at least outside the trigger guard.
Yes, sir.
And this is the trigger guard.
That is.
And this would be the trigger.
Correct.
And always know what's behind your target.
Yes, sir.
Those are 4 gun safety rules that everybody that carries a weapon, especially law enforcement, should know immediately.
Yes, sir.
And so that's why a Sewell position is important tactically when you're approaching a situation, because you don't want to do something. I'm going to do it to Jason because he doesn't care. You don't want to sweep somebody. This would be called sweeping them, right?
Yes, sir. When you point the barrel at them.
When you point the barrel at somebody, and that means that if the barrel's pointed at somebody, even if your finger is indexed, at some point it could go off.
Correct.
Right? And so when you tactically enter a room or a situation, you have to make sure that you're safe so you can engage the threat, but also make sure that other people are safe, because I'm not going to go in sweeping people and then under pressure there might be an accidental discharge.
Yes, sir.
Right? And so that's what you mean by tactical.
Yes, sir.
And so when we go in, when you, law enforcement, go into situations, you have to think tactics before you enter a dangerous situation. Right?
You have to have that thought in your mind. Yes, sir.
And one of the things when we talk about tactics and that fatal funnel, that fatal funnel is important because law enforcement officers in any department are taught to always, to the best of your ability, avoid a fatal funnel.
That's a fair statement. You don't want to put yourself in a bad situation once again.
And a fatal funnel is something like a doorway.
Yes, sir.
A hallway.
In my training, it's always been a threshold, but yes, in a hallway, that presents a whole different set of circumstances and the way you might approach that as well.
May I stand up again, Judge?
Yes.
If this is a hallway without the chairs here, and I'm rounding a corner, and we're gonna talk about slicing the pie in a second, and so if the judge, not that he's a threat to me, but if he was in our example a threat, and I turn this hallway, and these are all walls, I'm in a fatal funnel because the judge is the bad guy in our scenario, can shoot me, and I have nowhere to go to get cover. Right? You
could be in a bad situation.
Right, and that can happen not just in a hallway, but if this was a building, and I'm coming across a building, this could be in essence a fatal funnel because I have nowhere to go.
At the end of the day, any position you're in could be a bad situation. It's all about what's going on, the variables involved, and how you approach that.
And let's talk about some of those variables. And so what is the difference? The jury's heard this a little bit, so you can do it briefly. Concealment and cover, what's the difference?
So concealment would be something that you can get behind to conceal yourself, if you will, but may not stop a projectile. And cover would be something you can get behind for the concealment once again, but that you would expect to potentially stop a projectile.
Right. And may I use the well, Judge?
Yes.
And so I'm going to set up a little scenario here for you. Can you see me?
No, sir, I can't.
Am I covered or concealed?
You're concealed in this circumstance.
Okay. And so we're gonna. You're familiar with the term slicing the pie or cutting the pie.
Yes, sir.
And what does that mean? You tell us to the jury.
So once again, taking you back to the threshold I spoke to a second ago, when you slice a pie, if you will, you're taking it piece by piece. In other words, as I'm looking into that room and I'm taking steps and gaining more of a view of that interior room, I'm slicing that pie, if you will, as I'm going through those steps.
You're slicing your visual. So I can see. I mean, you can't see what I'm looking at. I see some of the jurors, and I'm little by little slicing this room. And you can't see what I'm doing, but they can see. And they can see little by little, they see me as time goes on. And so I am slicing the pie and checking for any threats, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. And so I'm going to age myself. You look a lot younger than me. I watched Starsky and Hutch growing up, right? You remember Starsky and Hutch?
I do, yes, sir.
Oh, wow. How old are you?
Well, I know of the show. I haven't watched
You're not
it.
a woman, so I can ask you. I'm 53. How old are you?
I'm 43.
Okay, you're young. So I'm 53. So in Starsky and Hutch, the old days, no one does this. No law enforcement officer goes to the actual cover and pins themselves, bunkers themselves against the wall, right?
Correct.
This is a disadvantage tactically. I don't want to be here like this because I can't see, and someone can come around the corner, and for me to have to do this, I'm exposing myself to the threat.
Yes, sir.
Right. And so slicing the pie, you can't see me, right?
No, sir.
And I'm gonna point this. Do you mind if I point this at you when I make the cut?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You do mind or you don't mind?
No, you can do it.
Thank you. And so if I'm here and I'm slicing the pie, I'm little by little, I'm there. Now I can see you, and I'm covered. I'm truly covered by this. I don't have to be on the wall. Matter of fact, you don't want to be on the wall. You want to be at some distance so you can slice. And then as you slice, then you make entry, and you'll start working into a room to try to clear the room, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's tactics.
That is.
So bad tactics would be expecting an officer to get close to a wall, right, and to make that turn from that cover position.
That could be considered a bad day, yes, sir.
That's a bad day, right? And are you familiar with the term in gunfire, echoing?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Like an echo. Like when firearms are discharged, there can be an echoing sound.
There can be, yes, sir.
Right? And the larger the firearm, the larger the echo.
I would agree with that, yes, sir.
And would you agree that it's hard to tell, especially with echoing on buildings, where gunfire is coming from?
It could be, yes, sir.
Right, it's challenging. You're outside, it's open, there could be a vibration off this or an echo off a building, and then trying to determine where this is happening if you don't have a visual, it can be difficult.
It can be. That's a fair statement.
And so, would you agree, as a law enforcement officer, you should never rush into a situation without assessing it?
To a point, yes, sir.
Have you heard of the term OODA loop?
I have.
Will you explain to the jury what OODA loop means?
So OODA loop, in lack of better terms, essentially means you're considering something, and your OODA loop is your thought process, your functioning, and typically you'll hear somebody say, well, I messed with his OODA loop, which means whatever you did could have interfered with that thought process, or what somebody might have perceived, or the way they would have acted, or so forth.
Can we break it down a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, so OODA loop, the first stands for observe, right? The first O is observe.
Yes, sir.
So you get into a situation, try to observe what's happening. Yes, and part of it is listening and hearing from witnesses, or what you're hearing or how you're feeling, but it's observing your circumstances, right? Correct?
Yes, sir.
And the second O is orient. Because after you observe what's going on, you have to orient how you're going to respond to this situation, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the D is decide.
Okay.
Right? You decide what you're going to do, and then the A is act on it.
Okay.
So that's a process. Would you agree?
It can be, yes, sir.
And then someone can go through several OODA loops in one incident, one situation. Because new information comes to you, and then you cycle that OODA loop again, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, I'm going to talk about some specific tactics. You got approach?
Yes, sir.
I'm handing you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Yes, sir.
Will you please review 7, 8, 9, and 10?
Okay.
And you recognize Defense Exhibit 7 as the corner, the southwest corner of Robb Elementary, correct?
Let me think about my direction here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, and then Defense 8, do you mind if I stand behind you?
Yeah, please.
Thank
Yep.
you. It is an overview of Robb Elementary showing the south side and the west side,
Yes, sir.
and the east side essentially.
Yes, sir.
And then Defense 9 is a similar but a different angle pulling away from Robb facing the west side.
Yes, sir.
And 10 is a bigger view, but also bringing in groves and the street in front as
Correct.
well.
Yes, sir.
And would you say that Defense Exhibit 7, 8, 9, and 10 are fair and accurate depictions of Robb Elementary, to your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
Judge, I'm handing to opposing counsel Defense 7 through 10, offering into evidence.
No objection. Submitted.
We're going to look at Defense 8. Can I approach, Judge?
Yes, sir.
So this is Robb Elementary, and I want to, I'm not trying to give you my back, but I want to make sure we understand. So this would be the west entrance? Right.
Yes, sir.
That would be the south,
Yes, sir.
east, and then here's the north. There's not an entrance, but, so this is where that monster came into the elementary school, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then matter of fact, this is a police car from your knowledge of this investigation. This is Adrian Gonzales' police car. They left it in the same position.
Okay.
Do you agree with that?
I wasn't outside for this, so I can't. I've heard about it, but I wasn't
Okay.
there. So.
Well, if I represent to you, that's Adrian Gonzales. So you have no reason. They'll correct me. I promise you. You have no reason to disbelieve me.
Sure.
Okay. So you can see that if this is Adrian Gonzales' police car, and where he went into the circumstance, he's into the situation, he acted and did something, the monster entered over here, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in your training experience and just practical in life, you've been to this area. Is there a line of sight from way southeast of Robb Elementary to the west?
Not from that position.
Matter of fact, the school is in the way,
That's correct.
right? And so it would be impossible, not probable, not unlikely, impossible for any human being to have a visual of what's going on the west side of this building from where that car is.
From the
correct?
ground. Yes, sir.
Now, tactically, if somebody was hearing gunfire, could you tell in your training experience, or have you even heard of somebody being able to tell that's coming from the west side of a building, just from being in a situation similar to this?
That's a lot of speculation on that.
It is a lot of-
I mean, number one, you have to be in that situation. I mean, on one hand, I can understand if somebody was there and they're saying they can't, but on the other hand, if somebody says they could, I wouldn't dispute that either.
You would not. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. It's a lot of speculation you started with. You're saying that you've heard of a scenario where somebody can be in a okay.
No, I'm not saying a scenario. What I'm saying is
Okay.
based on my knowledge, I can see if somebody was there and if they're trying to tell me they can't hear anything there, I can potentially understand because of the circumstances, but at the same time, if somebody told me they could hear something there, or if I was to understand that you did hear something there, I wouldn't disprove or dispat that either.
So if somebody is discharging a high-powered rifle, are you saying that you've heard of anybody with the training experience to determine whether they're on the west side or the north side of this building? From this position, can you tell if you hear someone discharging a weapon, you can tell between west side or the north side where that fire was coming
No,
from?
what I'm saying is if somebody's on that side of the building discharging a weapon and you're on the complete opposite side, to your point, could they be on the north side? Yes. Could they be on the west side? Yes. What I would say is he's not right there where they're at, but he is somewhere on that side of the building.
Well, what he would know is it's not on the south side because he's on the south side.
I would assume that,
right?
yes, sir.
And he has a somewhat visual of some of the east side.
Correct.
Right, because there's an L shape, so he's got some of the east side. So just he can deduce that he's not on some of the east side and definitely not on the south side.
I would
correct?
agree with that, yes, sir.
And in your training experience, if somebody made the claim that there were multiple gunshots from a high-powered rifle from the west corner of this building this way, southeast, you would expect to see multiple defects on the building.
Not necessarily. No,
Not
sir.
necessarily.
No.
If they were shooting up, maybe that you wouldn't, right?
Correct. I can tell you from my personal experience, we saw one on one of those, but I was involved in that documentation, if you will. So I know that particular one that was on a building on that side. I believe it was in front of where that car is, or somewhere in that general area.
Was it at the bottom of the building or higher in the building?
It was up high.
Okay. And if somebody claims to be on the floor or close to the floor, and someone is shooting at them with a high-powered rifle, would you think you would see defects on the bottom of the building or higher in the building?
It just depends, sir. It depends on angles of fire. It depends on any variables in between them, like once again, shots hitting something prior to their objective, if you will.
We'll talk about ricochet in a
But-
second. I'm just saying, is if you're sitting down, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if they're trying to prosecute a case on me for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, because that orange gun was a real gun and I
Yes.
shot at you, and thank God I missed. Would you think you would see defects around the chair and around the desk, or up in the ceiling if I shot at you?
It just depends, sir. Once again, with my experience in investigations, just because you don't have a defect, if you're crouched down like you said, and I'm working that scene and I see no defects behind the area that I believe that you were crouched down, I wouldn't automatically believe necessarily that he missed or he wasn't intending to hit you there, or she for that matter. Because once again, in my experience of investigations, just because somebody's shooting at you doesn't mean they hit where they're aiming.
So in a court of law, if there was a claim that I shot at you 30 times, where you're sitting right there, you're saying it's reasonable to a jury that there would be no defects behind you, not even one?
I'm not necessarily saying it's reasonable. What I'm saying is if you told me there was no defects back there and somebody was shooting at you, and we could prove, assuming we could prove that they were shooting at you,
Sure.
that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for me, simply because of my, once again, everybody has different shooting, experiences and training and what have you. But at the end of the day, I'm not saying that it didn't happen that way. What I'm saying is essentially is that if you have somebody that's saying they got shot at 30 times and there's no defects behind them, that would maybe initially make me say, okay, what are we dealing with here? And then work the investigation from there. But could it be that they shot high, shot low, or whatever the case may be? You have to take those into account as well.
Okay. I want to make sure you said a lot. I want to make sure you said assuming that we could prove that they shot at you. How would you prove that someone shoots at somebody? Without a video. Without a video. How would you prove that someone got shot at?
You would potentially prove it by by interview processes, by eyewitnesses. It could be other things besides a video potentially.
Well, you mentioned only two, and both of them had to do with people's opinions.
Okay.
Okay. Aside from someone's opinion, objectively, how would you prove that somebody was shot at?
You would hope to find defects in that area to
And that's-
corroborate that.
Right,
Yes, sir.
and that's all I was saying.
Okay.
In general, defects. How about shell casings?
From where they were shooting.
Well, back to our example. I'm going to go low just because I have. If there's a claim that I shot at you, there's 15 rounds in this magazine.
Yes, sir.
I shot 15. I extracted the magazine, loaded it, and then came back in for 15 more. How could we objectively prove that I shot 30 rounds at you?
So typically speaking, you would expect to find in your scenario 30 fired cartridge cases on the ground or in that general area. Once again, assuming that they didn't have a catch or something like that going on.
Yes, sir. And a catch meaning something to catch the shell,
Correct.
right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
But if they didn't have a catch, these rounds are going to be coming out to the right, correct?
On a right-handed firearm, yes, sir.
And so the objective, aside from eyewitness, because you mentioned the two things, eyewitness testimony, things of this nature, but aside from that, so you would find shell casings at some point to my right, not to my left, right? If I'm claiming to shoot from here.
Once again, not trying to be difficult, but
It's okay.
from my experience as an investigator, once again, could they be to the left? Absolutely. And that's simply from the standpoint of, did they get moved prior to my arrival, right?
Okay, but that means someone interfered with the scene. I'm talking about naturally
Okay,
evidence.
gotcha.
So right. So if there's 30 rounds, you're going to probably see 30 shell casings to my right.
In that scenario, you would expect to, yes, sir.
Because the ejection port is on the right side.
Correct.
Okay? And so objectively, how would you prove that I fired 30 rounds at you? Two objective ways.
So once again, find out where that person was shooting, find those cartridge cases potentially to corroborate what you're hearing or the evidence you're seeing. And then once again, like I mentioned, the testimony or the defects down the range.
Well, the objective parts are the defects, right?
Yes, sir.
So there should be some defects around you or behind you, and there should be shell casings to my right.
In that scenario, yes, sir. Yeah,
In
you would
the
expect
scenario
you would expect to find cartridge cases to link up to the defects that you find, hopefully downrange.
Right. And you were investigating a homicide, correct?
Yes, sir.
But actually, it was a mass murder of children, right?
Correct.
And an attempted capital murder of police officers.
Yes, sir. That could be correct too. Once again, I'm looking at a crime scene 112 in this case.
But you know now what happened. You know that animal shot at children and shot at police officers.
Correct.
Right? And that animal is no longer on this earth.
Correct.
And Adrian Gonzales is not that person who did all that horror that we saw on those terrible pictures, right?
Adrian is not Salvador.
I want to do one more thing. Let's go to number 10, please. Am I approach, Judge?
Sir.
Okay, so this is a different aerial. Robb Elementary, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'll do my best not to block the jury here. Same west entrance here,
Correct.
south,
Correct.
and we saw Adrian's cars over here on that other picture, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you know now that there were 3 other officers on the scene before the shooter went into the school, right?
I can't speak to that, no, sir.
Okay, if there were, because a lot of other people can speak to that, if there were 3 officers roughly here, they would have line of sight to the west entrance, correct?
Assuming that vehicles or what have you may not be blocking their view.
Yes, sir. And assume, we'll put another assumption that is a fact, that if you don't know, that one of them had a long rifle, one of them had an AR-15.
Okay.
That would be a weapon that is more capable for reaching that animal before he went into the west building versus the handgun that we were using as an example earlier, correct?
A rifle is a better long-range platform, yes, sir.
Right. And so the people on this side, the 3 officers on this side, had line of sight, would have had the opportunity, in our scenario, opportunity and the ability to stop the shooter from entering the school.
Are you telling me in your scenario that there's nothing in between their line of sight and that door? Because once again, I don't know. So.
I understand, and I'm glad you're being cautious. I'm just saying, let's say in my scenario, one of the officers asked for permission to shoot this animal.
Okay.
Would you believe that if he asked for permission to shoot, that that person was in his line of sight?
I would assume so.
That's the witness. Thank you, sir.
And does line of sight change if somebody's moving?
Yes, sir.
Could you pull that back up? Yep. Yeah.
Mr. Hood? Mr. Hood?
Yes, sir.
Could we lose the consent?
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge.
Thank you.
You didn't like it?
Couldn't see it. That's not unusual.
Just from the photograph defense exhibit number 10, if we have 3 officers by this ditch, and we've seen a video of the gunman actually running or jogging to this doorway,
Yes, sir.
that indicate that he's moving.
Yes, sir.
And would a vehicle conceal line of sight from an officer down here?
It very well could.
And would this vehicle also?
A vehicle.
A vehicle, depending on
Yes, sir.
the parking lot.
Yes, sir.
But you could see them for a short vehicle, but they're moving, it could then become no longer available.
That's possible. Yes, sir.
So it could be a very short window of time in which the officer could see that person.
That very well could be. Yes, sir.
Okay. The second thing I wanted to ask you about, your exhibit number 8, if I could.
Yes, sir.
The defense was talking to you about if you're here where Adrian Gonzales' vehicle is.
Yes, sir.
And you're not sure if the sound is coming from the west or the north. Do you recall those
I
questions?
do. Yes, sir.
If you do hear shots fired, at an elementary school during a school day, and you're not sure if it's here or it's here, do you stay by your car?
I would not.
What would you do?
I would make the best decision I could and go towards those shots.
Go toward the shots?
Yes, sir.
Is that how you're trained?
It is.
All law enforcement in Texas.
To go towards the threat, yes, sir.
So you would make a move one way or another.
I would like to think I would, yes, sir.
You wouldn't stay.
I don't believe I would, no, sir.
You wouldn't wait for cover.
I would not in that scenario.
Wait for other officers to arrive.
No, sir.
And if other than shots, you had a witness telling you where the shots would come and from, would you consider that?
I'm sorry, rephrase that?
If you had a witness standing in front of you telling you where the shots were coming from, would you use that information to decide where to go?
I would.
Not just the shots, but what people were telling you.
I would in that scenario.
Thank you.
And finally, the hallway. I believe you testified that a threshold is what you considered a fatal funnel. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And could you show the very first Just take just 1 second, John, until we pull that exhibit.
Okay.
That's it. Looking at the exhibit that shows it's at doors 111 and 112,
Yes, sir.
is that a fair and accurate representation about the doorways in that hallway?
Yes, sir.
And is that consistent all the way down the hallway as to all the rooms?
To my knowledge, yes, sir. The majority of the rooms.
And those doorways, are they inset?
They are, yes, sir.
Is it a place on down the hallway you could hide
That's correct.
and be concealed?
Yes, sir. Somebody could be concealed in that scenario.
So a fatal funnel being a threshold, a hallway could be a fatal funnel, or there could be areas of concealment.
You're asking if the hallway can be areas of concealment or a fatal funnel?
Yes.
Once again, my knowledge of a fatal funnel would be a threshold. I would consider a hallway a little bit different scenario. Tactics still apply in that scenario, but to your point, in this type of school and this type of insets, you could also be concealed as well.
And if you have an active shooting outside of a schoolway and then inside of the schoolway, would a fatal funnel then prevent you from going in?
No, sir. Once again, you want to assess it the best you can, right? And these things happen quickly. And to your point, whether somebody gives me information or whether I believe, either I know, I believe, or somebody gives me information, you try to make the best decision. But ultimately, with my training, I would like to think that in that scenario, I would be quickly trying to approach where I believed that threat was to address that threat.
Okay. And you've had the training as a police officer
Yes, sir.
in tactics as well.
Yes, sir.
And when you go in through a threshold, you were just talking about a doorway, correct?
I am, yes, sir.
Once you get in, things can spread out and
Correct.
be concealed.
Correct.
Correct. And movement helps, does it not?
It can, yes, sir.
And also, as tactically, you can walk through a doorway, I guess, standing up like this, make yourself a big target.
You could.
Tactically, can you change how big a target you are?
You could.
Can you squat?
You can.
Can you get down even lower?
Yes, sir, you could.
And that would present a smaller angle than someone standing in the hallway.
That could, yes, sir, depending on the scenario, but yes, sir.
And would you have to approach the south doorway before you could approach what would be called a fatal funnel?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
I mean, are you in a fatal funnel if you're standing by Adrian Gonzales' car?
any position you could be in, whether it's inside, outside, hallway, room, or whatever the case may be, you could be in a position that is not advantageous to you, tactically speaking. So from that regard is how I would probably answer that, because once again, fatal funnel, it could lead to other things and other tactics, if you will, bad or good. But bottom line, no matter where you are, no matter what position you're in, you could present yourself to that.
Okay, fair enough. Pass the witness.
I sure do appreciate your honesty, sir. I mean that, because you answered one of the questions I'd like to think I would. I don't believe I would. And I love that about that you answered that way, because that's honest, right?
Yes, sir.
You don't know until you're in that situation.
That's correct.
Right? And so I want to talk a little bit about what you hope that you would do and not do. Number 7, please. May I approach, Judge?
Yes, sir.
So this is that corner, southwest corner, and this is that AC unit. And this is that west side of the school leading into the entrance.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree that cutting the pie with that AC unit there with that fence is different than cutting the pie as if it was not there?
Yes, sir.
Right. Because this is not cover.
That is not. No, sir.
This is not even concealment. I mean, if I ducked behind an AC
Correct.
unit, maybe,
Yes,
right.
sir. Right.
But if I'm trying to use that setup,
The chain link itself is not.
right. I mean, it's not even. You can see me. I mean, I don't even know why I'm trying to cut the pie. I might as well just run in. That's nothing for me from a tactical position.
Once again, short of getting down behind an AC if you need to.
Right. But if we're talking about running after people and chasing a noise, not a person.
Yes, sir.
Remember, we're still in this chasing the noise. So this complicates negotiating this corner. Would you agree with that?
I don't know that I would agree with that necessarily, because you could go around it, obviously.
Right. But as you go around it, as you get far, you don't have cover or concealment.
You don't, but you didn't also leading up to it in that scenario.
You did, but what I'm saying is it blocks you, so you can't move past it quickly. You have to go around it.
Once again, sir, I wouldn't say it that way, because I can go around it just as quick, depending on the angle you're coming at. I'm not trying to be difficult, but what I'm
No.
saying is if you're, in this scenario, if I'm further to the right and I'm trying to go around it, it's never in my way to start with.
Let me ask you this. Is this exactly the same as if it wasn't there? Is that corner the exact same tactically navigating by it as if this AC unit and chain link fence is there?
And once again, to answer that question would depend on which angle I'm coming in at. If for some reason I'm coming past that door and I'm hugging, or not hugging, but necessarily close to that wall, where in other words that AC unit is directly in front of me, well then that obviously presents a potential issue, right? As opposed to if I'm 3 or 4 steps to the left in this scenario and I'm trying to get past it, it's not in my way anymore, so I'm going right
It's
past
not, but are you covered or concealed?
it. No.
That's what I'm saying. So if there's danger on the other side, it's not that it's going to stop you. It's not a barrier
Gotcha.
to you, right? And it's a bad question, so I'll take the heat for that one. But it's not that it's going to stop you. So I agree with you on that. I'm saying from a tactical safety position, if you're trying to stop hurt and death, if you don't even know what's happening, by the way, right? Let's go back. Just because you hear gunfire, that doesn't mean people are getting struck by that gunfire, correct?
I would personally take it as they were, because if somebody's shooting, they're shooting, in my mind, at something or somebody.
But it doesn't mean that people are actually getting hit, though. They may be missing.
It may be, but I have to assume they're getting hit in that scenario.
And remember I asked you earlier about the 30 rounds, and
Yes,
you
sir.
said maybe they missed? I mean, so I'm just,
Yeah.
it must be in your
Gotcha.
thinking somewhere. All I'm saying is it's not a barrier to you, but you have to negotiate around it. And if we're trying to consider your safety, like you said earlier, so you can help the most amount of people, it makes it more difficult for you to be safe and tactical around that corner. That's all I was trying to ask you earlier.
Right. If that AC
Right.
unit is in my line that I'm trying to get to, could it potentially? Absolutely. But at the same time, I could very easily move over if I needed to get around it.
And you would not be as safe doing that.
Possibly not.
Right, tactically. Can we go to 9, please? Here's a little bit different of an angle. It's in evidence. So there's the vehicle over there, right?
Yes, sir.
Law enforcement vehicle.
Yes, yes, sir.
And so let's assume, now remember, let's assume you hear shots and you're told that the shots are coming from over there somewhere. Okay? You're saying that you would automatically run to the shots without considering tactics? Because there's no cover here or concealment, right?
If I believe that the shots were coming, you're asking from this side of the area? Personally, I believe I would run as fast as I can to get to that corner where the tree is by the AC unit, which is, yes, sir,
Here?
right there.
Okay.
because I know the threat in my mind would be on this side, maybe up there, maybe down there, but I don't believe in that moment it's over there, so I would have gotten as quickly as I can down to that corner and then start assessing things as I'm moving forward.
And we're speculating, we're hoping that's what you would do,
I would
right?
hope so, yes.
But you're not, this is not a covered or a concealed situation.
What's that situation?
In your scenario where you're running to this corner, you're not covered or concealed, right?
Not by getting there, no, sir.
That's right. And so, and all this is open, so you're not, so the only cover you have is the engine block here for a moment.
But, yes, sir.
Because I think a lot of people think that a vehicle is safe. It's not safe to be in a vehicle when you're in a gun battle, right?
That'd be correct.
And it's not even safe to be behind a vehicle. A vehicle at best is concealment, it's not cover,
Yes, sir.
right? People shoot through vehicles all the time.
That's
The
correct.
engine block is some cover, would you
It
agree
is
with that?
some, I would.
And then the rim, like the wheel rim, where
Could
the
be.
tires are, if you're on your, and there's a tactical way to be on your side to shoot underneath the vehicle, that could be some cover, correct?
I would agree, yes,
Okay.
sir.
And so the only cover in this scenario that we're seeing is some of that vehicle.
The engine block one, yes, sir.
Okay. And so if, in our scenario, you tried your best and you're running with your handgun to this corner, and if the shooter is running down this way, and you haven't seen this person, by the way, right?
Okay.
You still have no visual on him. You're not just running around this corner at top speed. Is that a fair statement?
Not around the corner. Like I said, once I got to that corner, if I believe the shots were coming from over here,
Mhm.
then once I got to that corner is when I would start wanting to assess the situation better.
And it takes time to assess, right?
It can.
So this is not to scale, but so you hear shots. Let's assume that you observed. You didn't observe, but you listened and you oriented. You made a decision to act, and you said, "I'm just going to go." You run to the corner, and you're going to slow down once you get to the AC unit because you're going to do your best, even though you're not protected, to cut the pie around that building. And now you're on the west side of the building, and you can see how long that is, right?
So if I heard you correctly, did you say cut the pipe before the AC or at the AC?
Well, I mean, you're going to use the AC to try to use that to cut that corner, because cutting the pie is just trying to get around
Correct.
the corner.
At that AC, yes, sir. At
Right.
that corner, if that's where that corner would be.
Right. I don't want to fall in front of everybody when you're talking about shooting. Okay, so you try to use this AC to cut the corner of that building, and you have this long building, and then so as you start moving down this building and working, if somebody has a long rifle, who usually wins? A handgun or a long rifle on a straightaway?
It just depends on distance, and it depends on accuracy, and it depends on ability.
If you and somebody were going to get in a gunfight, and each of you had a choice, long rifle or handgun, which one would you pick first?
Close quarter, or personally, I mean,
Anywhere.
I'd want a rifle.
Of course you would. Everybody would. And so my point is, so from this long way, the rifle is a more advantageous weapon than a handgun, correct?
From a distance, yes, sir.
And so let's say you cut that corner, and then in our scenario, you see the person go in the building, okay?
Okay.
How they got into a door that should be locked, we'll talk about that in a little while. But then you see them go in. That doesn't mean that they can't go in that building and come right back out and kill you, right? You have to think of that tactically.
They could.
Right. So just because they go in that building, you're still going cautiously. You're trying to, you're like, oh, I hope they don't come back out that building, right? And you're walking all the way down to that door.
So I would think in that scenario, I'd like to think that if I was placed in that scenario, we've already addressed the fact of how I got to the corner.
Yes, sir.
If I see somebody go into that building, I would try to get there as fastly and as tactically sound as possible, trying to get to that threat again.
Would you tactically go out to these cars and get some cover at those cars as you make that corner? Or would you run just directly down the side of that building?
I would try to get there as fast as I could.
Well, I mean, we're speculating. You would not try to get at some cover, concealment in these vehicles, and so you can have a better angle at that door, just in case he's waiting for you or that person's waiting for you?
I could see somebody doing that.
Right? That would be a tactical decision,
It
right?
could be, yes, sir.
So let's say you get to the edge, and the person doesn't come back out and shoot you, right? And so now you're gonna have to cut the pie on this door too.
Say it one more time, I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to cut the pie again on this entrance door.
Yes, you would have to, tactically approach that doorway, yes, sir, that threshold.
And then you realize it's an outward swinging door. That's different tactically than an inward swinging door.
Yes, sir.
Will you explain to the jury why?
So on an outward swinging door, obviously the door's coming out to you, right? So with an inward swinging door, let me do it the opposite way. With an inward swinging door, you can open that door and still slice that pie, and that door is not really a problem for you. Whereas a door coming towards you, you have to contend with opening that door, keeping it open potentially, and then also entering that room.
Now, real quick, before Jason reminded me of something, just so people can get a kind of a visual of how big this is. You can see that's a person walking here, right? You can get up, if you don't mind.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. I mean, so that just kind of gives, this is a big, that's a human being, that's a person walking. This is after the fact, during the
Okay, yes.
investigation. So there were more cars here. This is not to scale of how many cars were during the incident.
Yes, sir.
But that's a person, so that shows you how big that you know, coming around that corner, coming all the way down, that kind of gives you perspective of the size of a person to that school, right?
Okay.
Okay. And so as you make, you realize that's an outward swinging door. So you're cutting the pie. You're cutting the pie, hoping at some point you're going to move in, and you're going to have to negotiate that outward swinging door, right?
That's correct.
And then you're going to make entrance into and then you're going to make entrance into a building, right, into a hallway.
Yes, sir.
Now that takes time, right?
As fast as you can make it happen, everybody's got different tactical levels, so
Right.
I would like to think that somebody with much more training than me can get in there probably quicker than I could, but at the end of the day, yes, it takes as long as you can get into that room and address that threat.
You're making a distinction between training, and that's important to do, right?
Yes, sir.
Not just because someone's law enforcement or someone has taken an active shooting class or someone has taken an alert class, that doesn't mean that everybody has the same skill level, right?
I would agree with that.
And so in our scenario, as you navigated that corner and you saw, you still have to navigate another corner if you even are familiar with the building and try to anticipate where this shooter is going, right?
Okay, yes, sir.
Because you don't know. I mean, if someone's shooting, you have no idea where they're going.
That's correct.
Right. And especially if somebody is not familiar with that building, they don't know where they're going. They're hearing stuff, so they have to move cautiously but expeditiously, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you know, in the scope of your investigation, that shooter, his home room was room 111 that he ended up shooting in?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Did you know that shooter, that his home room was room 111 that he ended up going into and shooting up?
I've heard that.
And so it's safe to say in an investigation that shooter had a targeted room. He knew where he was going.
That's possible.
And somebody that never put eyes on him would have no idea where this shooter is going. And the insinuation is that Adrian is supposed to follow the sounds without having any visual on the shooter, right?
I'm not sure what your question on that was.
What I'm saying is you have a person responsible for this horror had a connection to room 111, right?
Yes.
And so it's safe to say, possibility, that was a targeted attack on that room,
Right.
right? And somebody who never put eyes on that shooter, just only heard the shots, is having to guess where this shooter is going, right?
In that scenario, yes. If you didn't know where he was at and you're basing it strictly on sound, you're having to address that as you're going. Yes.
And then you have to apply all the tactics that we've gone along. I mean, just because you hear something, you're gonna tactically try to get there as expeditiously but safely as possible, right?
That's correct.
Because as you said earlier, you have to think about your own safety, not selfishly, but if you are injured or killed, you're no good to people that you're trying to help,
That's correct.
right? Yeah, I mean, and if you had a choice, and it's a reasonable amount of time choice, would you rather have backup or not have backup? As an officer,
Just in general,
in general, yeah, in general terms.
anytime we can have backup, it's always a plus, but that's a generalization.
And if it's in a reasonable amount of time, that's a better tactical decision to make, right?
That could be, but once again, that's a very loose generalization depending on what you're
understand.
faced with.
I get it. And may I approach, Judge?
Yes.
Are you familiar with school policies?
Well, it depends what you're asking, I guess.
Well, I guess, is it reasonable to believe that most schools require their exterior doors to be locked?
I would assume that's correct.
It's a safe assumption,
I would assume
and
so.
it's true. And so in your participation in this investigation, did you come to discover that this door was not even locked?
That's correct.
111 was not locked.
That's correct.
112 was not locked.
That's correct.
The two doors between 111 and 12, there's doors between them.
There is.
That was capable of being locked, right?
Yes, sir.
It was not locked.
One of the doors was open upon our finding. It is.
Right. And out of all the scenarios, and we can speculate all day long, one thing that we can all agree on is if that door was locked, it would have stopped the animal from getting into this building, right?
I can't say that.
You can't say it wouldn't have stopped him?
No, sir, because I can't speak to whether a locked door would have. That door might have stopped him if it was locked, but I can't speak to the fact that he wouldn't have found another way into the school.
I didn't ask that question. My
I'm
question
sorry, I
was,
misunderstood.
it's okay. It's a bad question if you didn't understand it. I'm saying if this door was locked, it would have stopped that animal from getting into the building.
So I'm still hearing it the same way.
If this door was locked.
If that door was locked, he might not have been able to get into that door, but I can't speak to any other doors that might have been unlocked.
Fair enough. Let's go back to our scenario. And let's say those three same officers are still there. Remember those three officers that had line of sight on this guy? And one of those officers that had a long rifle? Remember that?
Yes, sir.
So if that door was locked, knowing that Adrian is on this way over here on the south side, but that you have three officers with line of sight on this guy, if that door was locked, at the very least, it would have delayed this animal from getting into that building.
A locked door there, I believe, yes, would have delayed him, because then at that point he would have tried to find another, assuming he would have found another entry point.
Do you wish that door was locked?
I think we all wish that door was locked.
We all do. Thank you, sir. That's the witness, Judge.
Starting with Defense Exhibit 9. And the whole concept about cover.
Yes, sir.
If you hear shots coming from this direction or this direction, is this corner covered if you're at the police car?
If the threat is over here,
Yes.
then yes, that building itself would be cover and concealment at that point.
And would it be both cover and concealment all the way up to this housing unit for the air conditioning?
Yes, sir, assuming that that's still where the threat's coming from.
If the threat's coming from here or here,
Yes, sir.
either from sound or from sound and witness. And so when we talk about whether or not this wall is covered, it would depend on if the threat is coming from here, it wouldn't be covered. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Cover just means it's something that protects you from the shooter.
Something, yes, sir, that's correct.
So if the shooter's here, you've got cover all the way to the edge of that AC unit and its fence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The next thing we talked about is, would you rather have a rifle or a handgun, and who would win in that situation? Rifle in the open or handgun with cover?
You're asking which one I'd rather have? Once again, it depends on the scenario and everything in my mind, but at the end of the day, if I'm having to deal with a threat, either one would be good. But if I had to pick one, I'd pick a rifle.
Okay. But if you have cover, you're protected,
Yes, sir.
and if you have a handgun, it'll reach this distance, will it not?
It would from that corner, yes, sir.
And you don't have to be accurate enough to hit the shooter to distract him
That's a fair statement.
or to delay him
Yes, sir.
while your buddies are coming down from the rec area, right?
That's a fair statement, yes, sir.
That OODA loop doesn't just apply to police officers, does it?
That's correct.
That's-
Humans in general.
Everybody.
Yes, sir.
So if a police officer is shooting at somebody, then their OODA loop
Absolutely. Would
can be affected,
It would be, yes, sir.
distracted from their mission
Yes, sir.
until they decide what to do with a police officer shooting at them.
Yes, sir.
Do things like drop a bag full of ammunition
That's a possibility, yes, sir.
if police officers drive up.
Yes, sir.
That's affecting the OODA loop, changing their mind on what to do.
Yes, sir.
So a police officer, just their appearance on the scene is important in an active shooter situation, is it not?
It is.
Saves lives
It can.
by quick action.
Yes, sir.
And quick action is not standing by the vehicle.
If you're just standing at the vehicle and not acting, then that's not quick action.
Standing at the vehicle, waiting for cover
Once,
to come?
once again, depending on the scenario and where the shots are coming from, but yes, sir. I mean, just standing there alone is not taking action.
Okay. Waiting for other people to come?
Yes, sir.
And do they train you in active shooters to wait on other people, or is there such a thing as training about solo entry?
There is training on solo entry, but in general, everybody's trained that you get to the threat, whether you're by yourself or not.
You get to the threat by yourself or not?
Yes, sir.
That's what.
To get to the threat, you have to know where the threat is, right?
I'm sorry?
To get to the threat, you have to know where the threat is, right?
Yes, sir.
And you've come to know now that there was a dispatch of someone at the school with a gun running. Did you get to know that? Did you know that?
I'm not aware of that dispatch. no,
Matt
sir.
Roach?
Yes.
And so whoever drove this car, let me represent to you Adrian Gonzales, they drove into this situation, right?
Yes, sir.
They're not way out here,
Yes, sir.
three other officers. He's into this situation. Did you come to learn that Adrian Gonzales was one of the first officers in this building?
I'm not sure about that. I know he was one of the first ones there, but I'm not sure about in the building.
But if he was in the building, that's taking action, correct? If he ended up in the building, that's taking action. If he's one of the first officers in the building, that's taking action.
Yeah, I mean, if he got in the building, that is taking an
Okay.
action.
Well, right, and driving into this scenario, going after the description that's been relayed over the radio, is taking action.
That is an action.
So if someone was reported to have a gun running to a school, and if Adrian Gonzales saw someone running and he drove to the person that he thought was running, that's taking action.
That is taking, yes, sir. That's taking an
Now I
action.
want to direct your attention to some decisions and opportunity. So if you have Adrian Gonzales here, the shooter on this side, and three officers here, who has better line of sight? Those three officers or Adrian Gonzales?
In that scenario, those three officers would.
If Adrian has a handgun from this distance, and they have a rifle with line of sight, who has a better opportunity and ability to take out that shooter?
Once again, they have the line of sight, so they're the only ones that couldn't take a shot in that scenario if he's right there and knows where you're referring to.
They're the only ones that what?
If you're saying that if Adrian's right there, you asked the question, I believe, if I heard you right, so he has a handgun, who has a better way of making a shot, I believe, him or them? It's only them, because in that scenario, he's by his car.
But you said it specifically. You said they're the only ones that couldn't take a shot.
No. Could take a shot in that
Could take
scenario
a shot,
because
got it.
they have that line of sight.
Right. And you don't shoot at things you can't see, right?
Correct.
Pass the witness, Judge.
No further questions?
Recall.
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, sir, the rule is invoked. You're excused from the subpoena. You're not subject to recall, but do me a favor, don't talk about the case till you're aware it's over.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.